Today I will be telling you the Kayan stories of what Kop the Frog said to the Kayan people and the tale of Gamong. Come join me. Hi everyone, I'm Heidi. I'm a Malaysian author. Welcome back. Today I'm very excited because I will be telling you two stories from the Kayan people of Sarawak called What Kop the Frog Said to the Kayan and the Tale of Gamong. Both these stories are taken from quite an old book which was first published in 1899 called Folklore in Borneo, a Sketch by William Furness. I'm really excited to tell you the story, so sit back, relax, chill while I tell you these two stories from the Kayan people. A long time ago, the great chief Tokong was told by Kop the Frog that it wasn't enough just to take the hair of the enemies. He had to take the whole head. When Tokong heard this, he was angry. He thought to himself he couldn't possibly take the whole head. But after a spell of bad luck, his men, his followers, persuaded Tokong to just give it a try, see what happens. So after the next raid, they took the heads of their enemies, the whole heads of their enemies. And when they returned back to the river to their boats, they were surprised to find that their damaged boats had all been repaired. The boats were in seaworthy condition, and when they got the boats back into the water, they were even more surprised to see that the current in the river had reversed itself. So instead of flowing downstream, it was flowing upstream, which made it easier and faster for them to return home to their longhouse. When they returned to the longhouse, they found that in the 15 days that they were gone, their rice had grown, ripened, and harvested, and they had plenty of food to eat. They found that those who were ill were now well and fit again. The blind could see and the lame could walk. And from that day onwards, they declared that Kop the Frog was right and that after each raid, they would take the whole heads of their enemies. The end. The original book was actually inscribed by the author with these words. He said, "From the wildest of the wild men from the wilds." So he was really emphasizing that he had gone deep into the interior of Borneo to find these people and to discover their culture and their life. This book gives a brief monograph into the different folk tales found amongst the various ethnic groups in Borneo. William Furness was actually an American physician, ethnographer, and author, and he was one of the first to study and photograph the Kayan people of Borneo. He made 4 expeditions to Southeast Asia and Oceania to collect ethnographic, archaeological, and skeletal remains. So this tiny book, it's tiny. Look at it. This tiny book was the result of one of his trips to Borneo. We've already looked at a few stories which were collected by Western ethnographers, anthropologists, and historians such as William Skeat and Edwin H. Gomez in previous episodes. As I mentioned before, we must be careful when dealing with these kind of stories because these are the stories which have been collected and retold by those who are not from the society from which these stories come from. This one in particular should be treated with care because it deals with quite a sensitive topic, which is headhunting and also the religious beliefs of these people. So I just want to put a disclaimer out there at this point. Everything I'm telling you about these two stories come from this book. Now, I'm not saying that this book is the definitive representation of Kayan people. I'm pretty sure it's not. And it was first published in 1899, so it is very much outdated, but it does seem to be one of the few sources on Kayan culture and folk tales. So I will just be telling everything I'm telling you from these stories come from this book, okay? So be aware. Because of this, if you are Kayan or you know about the Kayan culture, and if I'm getting all this wrong, please do write to me. Tell me what I'm getting wrong. Let's have a discussion. I am dying to find out if what this guy says in this book is actually a true representation of the Kayan people. According to William Furness, the Kayans believe that their version of the afterlife is underground and that the entrance to this place is through a deep ditch filled with devouring worms. The souls of the dead must cross over the bridge by means of a fallen tree trunk. In other words, there's a big ditch full of worms that will devour you, and in order to cross it, you have to walk across a huge tree trunk, which seems like my version of hell. Now, this tree trunk is guarded by a demon called Maligang, and it is said that his forearms, his arms are as big as a tree trunk. And what happens is you stand on the tree trunk, you want to get across to the afterlife, and this demon will question you. And if he doesn't like your answer, he will shake the tree trunk and you will fall into that ditch and will be devoured by these worms. Nice. The fallen tree trunk is called Bintang Sikoba, and the demon is called Maligang. So this is kind of like a form of judgment day, I suppose. You arrive there, your dead soul arrives there, the demon asks you for a record of your past life. In particular, he wants a record of your bravery. And it's quite cool. He consults pegs on the tree to check whether you've been on a warpath, whether you've taken a head, what you've done in your life. If you pass this test, you can walk across the fallen tree trunk, Bintang Sekoba, safely and go to the afterlife. But if you don't have any record of bravery, if you haven't taken any heads, if you haven't died in battle, basically, he will shake the tree trunk and you will fall into the ditch and be devoured by these worms. If you've passed the tests and you've proven your bravery, you are allowed to go across the fallen tree trunk, and you will be assigned your proper place by a spirit or someone called Laki Tenangan. He presides over the land of spirits, which is divided into distinct areas according to what you've done in your life. Okay, this is fascinating. So the land of Apo Lengan is for those who die of sickness and old age. The souls who end up in Apo Lengan have the same living conditions as they did in their everyday lives, in their real lives. This means that if you had a miserable life, if you've done nothing in your life, your afterlife will just be a continuation of your miserable life. So I think this concept is to encourage the Kayans, to encourage people to improve their lot in life, to actually, go on the warpath, to seek glory for their family, so that when they die and their souls go to the afterlife, they don't have a continuation of the life that they had on earth. They have something better. The most sought after level in the afterlife is the land of Long Julan, which contains the souls who have died a sudden or violent death, either on the battlefield or in their farmstead, by, for example, the accidental fall of a tree. Young mothers who have died in childbirth become the brides of warriors. This belief is logical, I suppose, since in the past it was common for a young man to lose his wife in childbirth, and in turn this fuels his ambition to go on a warpath with the hope that by taking a head he will be able to join his bride, his wife, in the land of Long Julan, in the afterlife. Next, we have a place called Tak Tekan, which is for those who have committed the sin of suicide. I think most religions have similar views of suicide. So in this wretched place, the departed souls wander about in the jungle, eating what roots and fruits they can find. They will find no peace. As a result of this belief, suicide is quite uncommon amongst the Kayan people. The men would prefer to die in the battlefield and obtain the benefits of living in Long Julan. Tanyu Lalu is assigned to the spirits of stillborn children. These souls do not feel pain or experience any danger in this world. Lastly, in Lingyang, this is the abode of those who have died by drowning and lies below the riverbeds. The souls here are quite rich because they own all the goods that have been lost in the river. So there is this distinct division of the afterlife which provides motivation for the Kayan people to live their life in a certain way. To illustrate this belief in the afterlife, I will tell you my second story, which is the tale of Gamong, which also comes from this book. Once upon a time, there was a young man called Gamong who was on his deathbed. He knew he was dying, and he knew that he was in trouble because he hadn't gone on a warpath yet, he hadn't taken a head yet, and he was afraid. So he told his family that after he died, to leave his body sort of sitting up. He told his family to dress him up in his war clothes and to put weapons in his hand, his sword and his knife. His family agreed to do that. He promised his family that he would be back from the land of the dead in 3 days' time. Gamong passed away. His family dressed him up in his war clothes and put a sword in his hand, and they waited. Now, Gamong woke up in the afterlife and he could see that he was near Bintang Sikoba, the fallen tree. He could see the great demon Maligang waiting for him. So he approached Maligang. Maligang asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Gamong." Maligang then asked him, "Is there a record of your bravery? Let me check." So he checked the pegs on the tree to see if Gamong had gone on a warpath, if he had achieved glory for his longhouse. But before Maligang could check the pegs, Gamong raised his sword, he screamed and he shouted, he ran amok, he ran into the great demon's house which was just nearby. He overturned his jars of toddy, he trashed the place, and the demon was so surprised that he ran away. Because no other soul had ever done this before. For the first time ever, Maligang had abandoned his post and ran away. But as he ran, he turned and he shouted to Gamong, "I have not got you now, Gamong, but in 7 years' time, I will come for you. Just wait and see." After Maligang, the demon fled, Gamong returned back to earth, back to his own body. He woke up after being dead for 3 days. And he told this story to his family. Now, the story goes that Gamong lived for another 7 years after that and then succumbed body and soul to the great Maligang. And it is said that he never went on a warpath. He never got ahead. And since there was no record of his bravery, he was probably shaken off the tree trunk and devoured into the deep pit of devouring worms. The end. So what did you think of those two stories? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do leave a comment. If you liked these two Kayan stories, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Please share my channel with your friends and family and support me in my mission to get these Nusantara fairy tales out there. Next week, I'll be telling you a few stories from Sejarah Melayu from the island of Singapore. I'll see you next week.